wanna tell the story about the wreck you guys got in when you were teenagers?
Oh, when me and him?
Yeah, and I think was it my Aunt Jane? She.
Oh no, that was him in his '58 Ford truck, or '58 Ford car. You know, he thought he was hot. He had a 352 in it. It was fast, but I had a '57 Chevy at the same time. Had a 3-speed. It was a Hearst mystery shift. Had a 283 bored out power pack heads and all that stuff. He always said he could beat me, but he wouldn't race me. We get in the pasture and we'd race in the pasture. I could beat him in the pasture. He said, well, we'd get out and somebody said, well, let's go hook him up at the quarter. He wouldn't do it. Well, he comes and I said, yeah, you know, he wanted to save face. He knew that my Chevy could beat that Ford. But I was working at the gas station right on Main Street in Columbus, and here goes Dad on our tractor, an old John Deere tractor, going down Main Street. And he's coming, I see it, I go, what are you doing? He goes, I gotta go get Dave's car. And he just kept going. I thought, what the hell? So after a while, here he comes dragging back this car, been rolled and stuff, and he's got it hooked up behind the tractor, and he drags it down Main Street back on. Well, they were, him and Jane, and I think Jean and Jane both, and Joe Fortner, and he had a carload. And he went out just west of town there, what used to be called there's a bowling alley, Webb's Corner, called Webb's Corner. And he turned and went south, and boy, he gunned that thing. And he started fishtailing, and he just poured to it, and he lost it, and he went off in the field and rolled. Oh, no. He rolled it, and Jane, or one of them, Jean, got cut pretty bad on the back of her arm. I mean, it was cut laced pretty good. But the car had rolled over on its side, and his head it was laying on his head. It pitched him out, and he couldn't get his head out from underneath the car.
He was pinned.
He was pinned
at the door, top of the door, and he come down on his head.
Yeah. And luckily, it was a plowed field, plowed up, loose dirt.
It was wet.
Yeah.
Wet and plowed.
And so all the guys got out and pushed the car and pushed it back over on the wheels because it was laying on the side, and they got it over and got it off his head. I thought, gee, me criminy. They could have squashed his head and stuff, but.
And then, I think Dad chipped his tooth that way.
No, he chipped his tooth.
Oh, it was on a beer mug, wasn't it?
No, he chipped his tooth. The only time that me and him, there's only one time that just me and him went out together and got loaded. And I mean loaded. We went out together and we started out and we went bar hopping and we hit them all, and we'd sit there and we'd just make up stuff. He'd go, you know, I think she died. And I go, no, it was green. And he'd go, well, if they just, you know, hit the clutch right time, I think it had worked. And I said, no, that his shirt tail was up to here. Like this, and we're just throwing back stuff between us, just out there, and people sitting around us going, what in the hell? They're sitting there looking at us, and we're about to die. And we're like this, and he'd just come up with some really weird saying, and I'd look at him and come back with something really weird, and he'd go, oh, like that, and then he'd say something weird like that, and I'd go, oh yeah, okay. And these people, and we walk out of there and we're just, we had a good old time. And we ended up at the VFW. And by the time we got out of there, that was it. We was leaning on each other to even get out the door. And he lived in Oswego. But he said, you want to go home with me? And I said, no, take me out here in East Town. I'll stay all night with Leo. A buddy of mine lived in East Town.
Tash?
Yeah. So I went in there and I crashed on Leo's couch. And the next day, finally I wake up and Leo and them said, hey, your dad was here. He's trying to wake you up. What? When? Well, it was early this morning or late last night. I can't remember now. And he's trying to wake me up, and there's no way. I was out. I was done. So he just gave up and went home and stuff. So finally I found out Dave, he didn't make it a mile out of town. And he went off the side of the road and rolled his little Falcon car, and it threw him out. He ended up laying in the ditch, and the car rolled on. He rolled it 2 or 3 times and stuff. And somehow he got up And he wasn't very far from an old boy named Joe Grizzle. We knew him, and he knocked on his door and stuff. And Joe thought, "What the hell?" And so he ends up calling Dad and stuff. And Dad got there. And I don't know if Dad took him or something. They took him up to the hospital, and they took him in there. And he had one of his shoes was gone, and they found it, and it was bent like you take your shoe and bend it like this, and it was bent, and it was stuck like that. How in the hell did shoes come off and it rolled over on something?
Or was it stuck?
I don't know. It was stuck, you know, like you take your shoe off and bend it down, you know, the heel to toe. How it got like that? But his teeth was cracked.
Is that where he broke a rib too?
Yeah, he broke rib. He was peeing blood. They said he tore his kidney. He ruptured. He tore his kidneys loose or something. And it might have rolled over on him, but they don't know. And of course, when he was in the hospital, he's going, "Where's George? Where's George?" And Dad about crapped. They run back out there and they searched the ditches looking for me. They thought I got thrown out there somewhere. So boy, they was all looking for me out there in the ditches and stuff. They couldn't find me. Somehow he found out that I was there, and that's when he went and checked at Leo's, and there I was. And stuff. Scared the crap out of Dad.
Dead to the world, but not dead.
Yeah, dead to the world, but not dead. But Dad, this old doctor was Dr. Belcher. He was an old military doctor. And he said, there ain't nothing wrong with him. He's just drunk. I got Dad said, "You son of a, you better get in there and take care of that boy." And Dad was a hot boy. I mean, he's big enough. He backed it up, so it scared the snot out of Belcher. And he went in there and checked him good, you know, stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to cross Grandpa.
No. I mean, he the only few times I've seen him get really mad.
When you wrecked his truck?
Oh, that was, I stayed away from him. I didn't get near him. Oh, good God. I stood this far away. I knew if he started at me, I was taking off. I didn't get near him. I mean, he's so mad that he couldn't talk. And when he's that mad, oh, good
That's
Lord.
not good.
No. But I seen him get mad, Dad get mad one time. This old boy come to our, we had cherry bombs and M80s. We'd drive down the road and pitch them out and boom, you know, and stuff. Well, this guy named Harrington in this little town called Neutral, just a couple, 3 miles from the house, he come up there like that, and he said, and I went out on the porch, and the old man Harrington, he said, "What'd you boys shoot my dog for?" "We didn't shoot your dog." You know what he was talking about. Like, "You shot my dog." And Dad was still eating breakfast, and he had on he always wore those muscle shirts, and he walked out.
They call them wife beaters now.
Yeah, call them wife beaters now. He walked out there on the porch, and what? Like that. And he said, "Those boys shot my dog." He goes, "Those boys don't own a shotgun, and they ain't got into mine. Well, they this and that." And Dad says, he started shaking, and he pointed his finger at that old boy, and he says, "You get your ass in that truck and get off my property right now." Like that. And old Harrington looked at him. He walked around there, got in his truck, and drove off. Dad was just sitting there, and he still was chewing his egg. He had a little piece of egg on his mouth. He's like, "Get your ass in that truck, boy." And I mean, he pointed, and he went like this here. Dad was serious, and I'm even standing. Whoa! You know, I kind of stood sideways. I thought Dad was coming off that porch on him. Boy, man, he was hot.
He didn't
No.
Didn't get to that level too often. I never saw him.
No. I remember one time, Dad never drank hardly much at all. He might drink a beer or two or something. But one night he was a member of the Legion, and he had his Legion hat and everything. That night he went to town. He had a nice shirt on and a pair of slacks, and his nice dress hat. And he went to town at some kind of meeting. Of course, they were drinking beer. I know. He come home, and I was out in the yard there and had the pole lights, you know, and the wind was blowing. And he gets out and he kind of staggers a little bit, and the wind blew his hat off. And he kind of goes staggering after his hat, and he picks his hat up, and I went like that, and he went like that, hit me right square in the chest, and hit my ass. I mean, he just looked at me, and he went like that, and it just knocked me on the ass, and then he goes, "Ha ha ha." He just turned around and walked in the house, and I'm going, holy crap.
How old were you?
Oh, about 12, 13.
Old enough to be?
Old enough to, I go, oh, I can, boom, straight on, right there in the middle.
He was strong
Oh,
in the 70s.
Yeah.
He just...
When he was a younger man, he had 21-inch biceps. You take a tape measure and measure out 21 inches. I think the biggest I ever got was like maybe 16, maybe when I was in my younger days, 16. He had 21-inch arms, big.
But his hands,
big old barrel chest, man.
Grandpa's hands were, his one hand was like as thick as two of mine.
And rougher than a cob.
And his fingers were just.
Yeah, you don't want when they're
vice. They were vice.
But when they're like this in a fist, they're huge, and they're solid. I know. Straight on, like that. Boy.
And he was. Dad and I and him went to one of those pits right outside of Scammon, just south of Scammon, like not even a half mile, about a half mile. You know, the ones that sit on the east side of the road.
Oh, I gotta get back up.
And Grandpa was out shooting us with a little 22 pistol. He was out shooting both Dad and I. And at that point, Grandpa was in his early 70s.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He was probably 72, something like that.
Well, when he was in the military, he was an expert on the carbine, and he was kind of bragging about it. And the guys told him, said, "You nut?" And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "They'll make a sniper out of you." Like that. Oh crap! So Dad started pulling the shots. He'd pull them off a little bit, so, but he was an expert. You know, he was expert.
He grew up having to shoot.
Oh yeah.
Or not eat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was an expert when it come to shot and stuff. I asked him one time, "Did you ever kill a man?" He goes, "Well, I shot at him. He never would tell me. I didn't push it any further." I know he did.
Yeah.
I know. There's no doubt in my mind. He was an expert shot, and he went through the battle
Corey
of
and
the bulge and stuff.
Both asked him that question because we were little and stupid, and the idea of war was what we saw on TV.
Yeah.
And he just said, "Well, I don't really know."
He knew.
He knew exactly.
He knew exactly. He knew.
And he was very choosy about the stories he'd tell you and the ones he wouldn't.
Yep.
You want to take a break and go get back up?
Yep.
I'll check this thing out.
That's break 2. We'll be back shortly. Peace out.
Or peace in, one or the other.
Yeah.